Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Bevilacqua. I'm the Vice President of the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce. I want to say thank you all for joining us for our annual Public Safety Breakfast Forum. I want to thank the District Attorney, the Essex County Sheriff, all the police chiefs as well for joining us this morning for this very important conference. Couple of things I want to first off start with is I want to thank our sponsors for today. Without our sponsors, we couldn't do great events like this. So I want to first off thank All Pro Electric, the Merrimack Valley Chamber Means Business Program, Pride Star Trinity EMS, National Grid, Norwood Insurance Agency, and Revise Inc. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you again. And then just a couple of quick programs that are coming up with the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce. As you know, the Merrimack Valley Chamber hosts over 100 in-person programs each and every year. Some of the ones coming up for October include our next week on Wednesday, we have our networking at noon lunch program at 34 Park Restaurant in Andover. The following week on October 12th, we have our annual dinner. Governor Baker is the keynote speaker. We'll be honoring a few members of the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce as well. This event is almost sold out, so if you're interested in registering for either an attendee or a table, make sure to do so as soon as possible. Again, the annual dinner with Governor Baker on October 12th, and that'll be taking place at a new location this year, Michael's Function Hall in Haverhill. We also have a great, a free veterans recognition breakfast program that'll be taking place on November 4th. It's going to be taking place at Salvatore's at the Riverwalk. It's free, completely free to register for. We view it as a way to thank our veterans with Veterans Day coming up in November as well. And then the last thing I want to mention is that we'll be at Renaissance Golf and Country Club as well for our networking mixer on October 19th. So a whole host of programs coming up. You can view all the flyers out there. We also have upcoming event flyers that will be, I'm sure you'll see in your emails as well. But again, I just want to say thank you all for joining us. Keep an eye out for all the upcoming programs, and I'm going to turn over to Joe Bevilacqua to start the program. Thank you.
Thank you all again for attending. It's just a beautiful day. Let me recognize some people in the audience, and we're very, very fortunate. We have such a great working relationship on a regional basis because business doesn't stop at a city or town border. It's part of our region. In fact, you're going to see a new initiative which the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce is initiating that'll be coming out with our new directory. It's including a new visitor guide. And one of the things that we're going to be doing is recognizing the regional impact of hospitality and visitors to our region. But let me recognize some good friends of the Merrimack Valley Chamber who work with us on a regular basis. The first, obviously, is from the mayor of the city of Methuen, Neil Perry. Give him a round of applause. State Senator Barry Feingold. Welcome, Barry. We have representatives from Senator Diana DeZogalo, and I know that she's a little busy right now. Welcome, Cassie. And we also want to recognize, although the Chamber does not endorse any candidate, we do not, we want to recognize Sal DeFranco, who is a candidate for State Senate. And we want to say thank you to Lawrence Community Access Television, WHAV, and a new initiative that we're initiating today. You'll see a person walking around with a camera. He actually belongs to us, 5 Point Strategies. Welcome. Now, we continually meet with Michael and I meet with a business, at least one business every day, and we hear the issues that they talk about. The two issues that have consistently been up the forefront have been the issue of energy and healthcare. So what did the Chamber do? The Chamber has a major energy program as well as a healthcare initiative. And at our Fall Expo, which was just held in September, we had a breakfast with the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs talking about energy costs and ways in which we can conserve. In our lunchtime program, Andy Furman coordinated with us, we had a healthcare assistance program because obviously healthcare costs is another major concern. But there is an issue that's rising. We're starting to hear this from some of our businessmen and women, and that's the issue of crime. Not that it's here, but that it may come here. And so at the end of the program, if you have any questions or comments for any of our speakers, please feel free to ask those questions. We'll hold those to the very end. One of the things that I've noticed over the years that I've been with the Chamber is, in fact, the regional approach to protection of businesses, our families, our homes, and so on. And that's why we do this program. So if you look at this program, you'll see the fact there is the region represented. Because I believe, as you all do, I'm sure, that crime doesn't stop at a city or town border. It has to be a regional representation. And we're very, very honored that year after year after year, the district attorney and the sheriff and the chiefs of police have joined us. And I think that's very important. Please give them a round of applause for their service. As well as all the men and women in the police forces, as well as the other public servants in our fire department and our first responders with the EMS service. So we're going to recognize our first speaker. You may have heard that he is retiring. We've indicated to him that he's always welcome at a Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce event. Please welcome someone that told us about things before we read about it in the newspaper. And I'll never forget, Jonathan, when you spoke about it, this was years ago, when you spoke about something that parents should be concerned about. I remember the district attorney talking about how they were aware, the police chiefs and departments were aware, that late at night, they would see the computer light in kids' bedroom, what they assume were kids' bedrooms. And the district attorney years ago said to us, as parents, be aware who your kids are talking to because you never know who was on the other end of that computer line. Do you remember saying that? I remember that. And he told us about things that were happening, drug abuse and other issues. And so we've been very, very fortunate. We've had the best district attorney, Jonathan Blodgett. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much. Josie, you remember that? I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. But I want to thank Joe and the Chamber for the opportunity to come say a few words. I have come every year that Joe's asked me to come, so I think it's important that I speak to you and that I answer any questions you have, but I'd be glad to do it. I am retiring after 20 years, and I'm going to join that pantheon of retired chiefs, and these chiefs know what I'm talking about. Every retired chief I've worked with, when I see them, they have that frozen smile on their face, and they just can't wait to have every day be a Saturday. I will do some things, but I am looking forward to my retirement and to have and support my successor, Paul Tucker, as he becomes the new district attorney in January. I want to again express my gratitude to everybody from this county. I'll always be indebted to the voters of Essex County for giving me the opportunity to serve as their district attorney for 20 years. I want to talk about a couple real quick things, and I really won't be overly long, I promise, but a couple things I think will be of note to you and also that you may find interesting. And I want to talk about two cold cases that we've solved, and defendants are waiting right now, being held in custody trial. On September 12, 1988, the body of 11-year-old Melissa Ann Tremblay was discovered in the old Boston Main Railroad yard in Lawrence. She had been stabbed to death. Post-mortem, her body was run over by a train car, causing her left leg to be amputated. In the nearly 34 years since, Lawrence Police and the Massachusetts State Police detectives have worked tirelessly to find the killer. In 2014, a team of prosecutors and detectives in my office took a fresh look at the case. Keep in mind, all unsolved homicides is subject to periodic review. But advances in DNA technology have helped develop a lead, and it eventually led to Marvin McClendon. He was arrested in April in Alabama and brought back to Massachusetts, and he's now in custody in Middleton awaiting trial. Now, these are things you probably read about or hear about on television, but I will tell you that the effect it has on the community is often very devastating. An 11-year-old girl who was murdered, and nobody was being held to account for that. And it took us 34 years, but we got the right guy. And he'll have his day in court. He's presumed innocent until trial, but it's a case that I have a tremendous team of investigators, Lawrence Police, state detectives, prosecutors working on. And we are very hopeful that justice will finally be served. Now, it doesn't bring back a lost one, as we all know, but it is something that has an effect in the community. And I will tell you, I've talked to many police officers, troopers, and local police who've talked about cases that haunt them because there's been no closure. And it's ironic today that we have someone in the audience who worked on this case, and he was so gratified when he got the call from us. We got him, and we asked him to come to the arraignment, and I wanted to be recognized today. That's retired Lawrence Police Officer Thomas Murphy. Please stand up. Like I said, it doesn't bring a loved one back when you see the gratitude in the eyes of police officers, when you can tell them we finally have made an arrest in an unsolved murder, it's very gratifying, not just to the family, but to me during my tenure as district attorney. In August, we announced the indictment of John Carey for the murder of North Andover native Claire Gravel. Claire was a student at Salem State College, went to Major McLeish's pub in Salem with friends on a Saturday night in June of 1986. 3 workmen discovered her body in the woods on the northbound side of Route 128 in Beverly the next afternoon. The medical examiner determined that she had been strangled to death. And despite the best efforts of local and state police detectives, the killer eluded authorities for 36 years. A new lead was developed based on modern forensic analysis of previously collected evidence that ultimately led to the indictment. And Mr. Carey is currently incarcerated in state prison for another crime, but he will be tried for the murder of Claire Gravel. One of the reasons, as I just mentioned, solving these cases is so gratifying is the comfort it gives to grieving family members. While nothing we do can ever return the loved one to them, knowing that the person responsible for their death will be held to account means everything to them. And as I contemplate the last 20 years, I also take pride in my work in my office did at the very beginning of my tenure in dismantling the insurance fraud in Merrimack Valley. The high rate of fraudulent claims not only drove insurance rates up, but also made the streets unsafe. After a stage accident claimed the life of a grandmother, I convened a special grand jury to investigate and prosecute everyone involved. Working with the Lawrence Police and the Insurance Fraud Bureau, hundreds of people were arrested. Injury claims dropped precipitously, and tens of millions of dollars were returned and saved. As you can imagine, this work requires a lot of resources, human and financial. I'm very proud of the team that I have assembled. They are hardworking professionals who don't often get the recognition they deserve. In addition to the appropriation that the legislature, my office utilizes federal and state asset forfeitures funds to cover costs associated with solving these cold cases, as well as transporting fugitives who have fled the Commonwealth back for justice. We pay for expert witnesses, training, DNA testing, and transcripts. I've also used these funds to support programs to help keep young people out of the criminal justice system, like the Lawrence Boys and Girls Club. In the last legislative session, a bill was proposed that would significantly alter the process of seizing the funds, as well as how the funds are managed. Proponents of this measure accuse district attorneys of using the funds inappropriately and unfairly seizing assets. As is the case with many of these debates, the truth is somewhat distorted. There are very strict rules and reporting requirements for federal and state forfeiture funds. Additionally, due process is afforded those whose assets are seized, or you have court hearings presided over by a judge. My practice is to engage a private auditor in December of each year to review my asset forfeiture accounts to ensure that my office has complied with all legal requirements. These auditors have never found an issue. And I should say as well, the seized funds we have are shared with local police departments. They, in turn, use those funds for education programs for young people and to help keep our streets and our cities and towns safe. District attorneys cannot unilaterally seize funds from a criminal defendant. We must present evidence that links the assets to the criminal activity, again, as I mentioned, to a judge. The legislation also proposed the appointment of tax-funded lawyers to represent, quote, indigent, quote, individuals in a civil asset forfeiture proceeding. So let's be very clear about this as well. Most of the individuals whose assets are seized and found to be connected to criminal activity are drug traffickers. The idea that they need court-appointed counsel in a civil proceeding is laughable. It is also an insult to indigent victims of domestic violence seeking a restraining order, which is also a civil procedure, as they are not entitled to representation. I have to also point out that there were very few legislators who voted against this and who understood and supported law enforcement in that regard. And one of them is State Senator Barry Feingold, sitting here today. Thank you again, Senator. I reached out to the Senator and thanked him for his vote. Last year, I mentioned the legislature's effort to provide parole eligibility for first-degree murderers. Again, I cannot overstate, as I have said here before, my opposition to this proposal. First-degree murderers forfeit their privilege to liberty. They have committed the most heinous of crimes, and for those who argue that it's just giving them the, quote, the possibility of parole, I suggest that possibility robs the victims' families of any peace of mind, a sense of justice, or closure. So on my way out the door, I'm asking you to all pay attention to these legislative proposals and contact your state representative and senator. These issues affect the quality of life in your communities, and it will limit your next district attorney's ability to solve cases, pursue fugitives, and secure justice. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. District Attorney. Again, we'll have questions at the conclusion of all our speakers. We want to recognize our next speaker, a person who's been with us for a number of years, the Essex County Sheriff, Kevin Coppinger, who's been working alongside the Chamber for a number of years. Welcome, Mr. Sheriff.
Thank you, Joe, and good morning, everybody. Hey, before I start my comments, I just want to briefly just, say thank you to John Blodgett. I know you still got 3 more months. You're not quite walking out the door yet, John, but you can see that door is opening. But think about this for a second, and I want to echo what Joe was saying, too, with the police chiefs here, the DA, and the sheriff here. I look at the criminal justice system like a baseball game. The early innings, the first 3 innings, when someone dials 911 or there's community problems, these gentlemen and their peers, to my left, answer the call. They take care of the first 3 innings of the game. They're here, front lines for public safety. And then the middle 3 innings, the relievers that come out of the bullpen of the district attorney's office, because they have to prosecute the cases and put forth the cases that need to be found, the individuals need to be found guilty, or diversion programs, a lot of stuff that John and his team has done to help our community. And then the last 3 innings, I guess you could say that's corrections. For those that get convicted and do come to jail, we have a job to do. So when they return to society, they return in better shape than when they arrived at our front door, or when that 911 call was first placed. So we have a great team here in Essex County. We have great people. We have great police, the DA's office. And I've known John for many, many years. I think a lot of you know I used to be the chief of police in Lynn. I met John, when he first ran, and he's been an incredible individual, great insight, great vision, and he's brought that team together. He's like the anchor that keeps us going. So I'm just going to ask you one more time. Just give John a round of applause, please. Since I become sheriff, I'm at this meeting every year, and I look forward to it. It's a great opportunity to get our message out and to listen to you and to seek input and just be here with my fellow law enforcement professionals. And over the years, I've talked about different things we're trying to do in the jail. I just mentioned one of them. The major one is, the goal of the sheriff's department is to take the individual on day one and do what we can with them while they're in our custody. And no pun intended, we have a captive audience, so let's take advantage of it. And then when they leave, they go back to the community, so they do not recidivate, they do not commit crime, nobody dials 911 on their behalf, so these gentlemen and their peers can go back and do the job that they have to. And I've talked about different programs that we've done in the jail. Substance use disorders, how we treat them, medication-assisted treatment, other clinical and psychological issues that we help deal with the inmates while they're struggling with these addiction issues. Mental health, huge problem throughout our community, no matter where you live. We have a number of programs inside our jail now where we address those on an individual basis with the inmates. We've gone on to educational requirements, educational programs in partnership with Northern Essex Community College as well as Merrimack College. We bring them actually into the jail to teach the inmates, whether it's their high school equivalency or maybe a college level course. We also have vocational training, teach the inmates a skill, a job, so when they get out of jail, they can perhaps get employed and reunite with their families, stay in the community, and become productive members of society. So we've been doing that for a number of years. But one of the things I really wanted to do when I first became sheriff was, bring that back to the community. And finally, I'm able to say we've done that. In April of this year, we opened up our STAR offices. We love acronyms in the criminal justice field, so you'll hear 100 of them when everybody talks. But STAR is short for Supporting Transitions and Reentry. It's something we actually tried to do about 2.5 years ago when that ugly monster called COVID-19 approached, and we had to shut the world down. So we actually rolled this out. We have 2 centers, one in Lawrence and one in Lynn. So everything I just talked about, all these different programs and treatment services are now available in those 2 communities for individuals getting out of jail, maybe going on probation or parole, or even get community referrals. And for example, we have actually inmates coming out of Middleton that will voluntarily sign up and come to the STAR program on their own without any court restrictions or any court advisories. And they'll come in and we'll continue all those same programs. If they need to continue their education, we'll do it. Need to continue their substance use disorder treatment, we'll do it. Mental health services, we'll do it. Job skills, we'll do it. And we continue that program. We even do drug testing, working with the communities. And the beauty about it is, as I said before, some folks come in on parole, some come from probation. That's still tied into the criminal justice system. But it's actually taken off in Lynn, and not because it's my alma mater, but I'm very proud of the Lynn Police Department. They came to us with an idea. So they have a bicycle unit that patrols the downtown area where a lot of their activity is focused. And they said, can we bring people to the STAR program who are not involved with the criminal justice system? We said, certainly, bring them on in. And they did that. And that's a prevention measure that's actually working very, very well with the city. And I've spoken to these gentlemen and given them a brief insight on that, and hopefully we can bring a similar program up here to Merrimack Valley. But what it's doing is we have a lot of people in our community who still need these services. And by the way, I'm not an economics major, economist, whatever the word is, but watch the stock market lately. I think we're going into a recession. And Joe mentioned something before. I'm going to make one prediction here. We go back into a recession, you're going to see crime go back up. People will lose their jobs. Folks, the paychecks won't be coming in. Domestic violence will go through the roof. And you'll have more crime in your communities if we go into a bad recession. That's a fact. That has happened many times over the many, many years. So programs like our STAR, working with local law enforcement, working with the district attorney's office, is just another opportunity where we can give these individuals, hopefully we keep them out of the criminal justice system, keep them out of jail, and then we'll give them the services that we can. And by the way, you may be thinking, how are you paying for this, Coppinger? That's probably got to cost you some money, because it is free for everybody. I got to give Congressman Seth Moulton a little pat on the back for that one. He got us a substantial grant from the Department of Justice earlier this year, which helped us, get this rolling, and we're going to work on that money and keep going forward. So that's really what we're doing now, but it's also a community-based partnership. So in Lynn and Lawrence, we have many, many, community-based partners in addition to the criminal justice, partners we have here. But as we expand up here towards the Merrimack Valley, if you want to become part of the team, give us a call. We can always use your services. And if you're looking so hopefully we can help provide some employees for your services if you need them, just give us a call. We're here to serve you, everyone in this room, and all your peers throughout the Merrimack Valley. So thank you very much, and have a good day, folks.
That's one thing that I think this program does. It allows you the opportunity to know who you can actually communicate with to provide assistance, and to let them know how they need to assist you. And you'll hear more about that during the question and answer. Cal Williams just came in from Boston, stuck in traffic. I want to recognize Cal. Cal, raise your hand. Cal is a member of our Chamber Executive Committee, but he's also, along with Sal DeFranco, the co-chairs of our Veterans Assistance Program. And that, as Michael mentioned earlier, the program is coming up on November 4. Let me tell you one of the things the Merrimack Valley Chamber does in terms of community. You all know about the unfortunate tragedy in Afghanistan airport. Sergeant Johani from Lawrence was one of those poor individuals that was killed. Well, her dream was always to have a home for her family when she got out of the military. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to complete that mission. Mike Sullivan, the chairman of our board, is coordinating through the chamber the complete rehabilitation of the Johani home. The family was able to purchase a home, but they had no funds to actually rehab it. The house needed complete rehabilitation through a lot of people who are providing donations of materials, of supplies, labor. The home will be completely renovated at no cost to the family, and they should be moving in sometime in late October. And that's one of the things that our Veterans Assistance Program through the Chamber of Commerce is doing, and many of you to help our veterans. And you'll hear more about that on November 4th. So please, thank you. And Mr. District Attorney, I just want you to know that Cal is a Marine and Sal is a Navy SEAL, and I have to keep them apart, Just want you to know that. But thank you all, for anyone that's been a part of that very, very important project. As you heard, these individuals are on the front line. When we call 911, we call for assistance. This is who we call. And I want to tell you that as far as the Chamber of Commerce, whenever we've had a problem or a question or a concern by a member of our business community, and we've talked to any one of the chiefs of their departments, they've always been there. And I've never had, and this is true, in the years I've been with the Chamber, I've never had, chiefs, a return phone call from the business person saying they didn't help me or they were of no use to me. They never called me back, which told me that they provided the assistance needed. Give them a round of applause. So please welcome the Chief of the City of Haverhill, our host community, Chief Robert Pistone.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Michael. Thank you to the Chamber for having us today. Before I get started, I'd like to echo the same sentiments of our outgoing District Attorney, John Blodgett. I can say I've been in law enforcement for 25 years, and there'll never be another John Blodgett. He was firm but fair on both sides of the fence, and part of what I'm going to speak about today has to do with what he just spoke of and what our Sheriff Kevin Coppinger just spoke of, and that's about a holistic approach. Years ago when I started in law enforcement, people would be arrested, thrown in jail, do their time, end of story, but there was no problem solving. Today, as you're hearing, there's a holistic approach that's taken to law enforcement where, again, it's all about problem solving and how do we rehabilitate people. You know, as I like to say, nobody chooses to be bad. There's an underlying reason why people act the way they do. Could be the upbringing, their circumstances, addiction, mental health, and it's up to us not to just arrest them, but as the sheriff said, work as a team. And how do we rehabilitate these people so they don't go back to jail, be a drain on our resources, and become productive members of society? One of the things we just started in Haverhill in the past year, and I have two members with me. I have Officer Dan Trokey. Dan, could you stand up, please? And next to him, Julianne Muse. Stand up, please, Julianne. So Dan's a veteran officer. Julianne, she's a licensed clinician from Leahy Behavioral. And they're part of our behavioral response unit. We just started a second one as well that'll be starting in the next week or so with another officer, with another clinician. They handle approximately 100 cases, mental health cases, per month. So in the past where police would just go out and we get a call for somebody in a mental health crisis, and again, what do? We get there, try and maintain some order, put them in an ambulance, they go to the hospital, and usually they're back in the street in a matter of a half an hour, a few hours, and they're not getting what they need. What Officer Trokey and Julianne do is they're sent to these calls, and they spend the time that's necessary, find out the underlying causes, make sure they're getting the services they need. And Sheriff, I was just talking to Julianne before the breakfast. They just referred, in front of City Hall, we had a homeless person living out of his car. People started calling. They noticed this gentleman. They worked with your program, with the STAR program, and they are working on getting this person housing and life skills that he'll have housing. So, and again, that's just one great example of the program you started, Sheriff, and with the behavioral response unit, we're able to take a homeless person off the street and get them housing and get them life skills that they need. So definitely a great success. In the past year, Haverhill is police department. We're now nationally accredited. We're one of only 6 in the entire Commonwealth. So again, that speaks to the men and women that work for our department. And while I have you all here, I know we have a lot of our business community leaders here. We also started a program, community outreach. So I have a community outreach officer, Detective Sean Charnock, and he goes out on a daily basis. He meets with our businesses, also with our faith-based community, and he's constantly in touch, wants to know the needs of the businesses. Downtown we have a business who, they have a homeless person living across the street in an alleyway, and they're empathetic to the person's plight, but at the same time, he scares away some of their customers if he gets intoxicated or whatnot. Behavioral response unit, they will respond and try and get him housing and the mental health services that he needs. So again, it's all about teamwork. And for those of you here that have Haverhill-based businesses, again, we encourage you, anytime you have an issue, you're an important part of our community, reach out, let us know how we can serve you. So thank you. Thank you, Joe. And I'd be remiss, he just reminded me, I have my Deputy Chief, Stephen Doherty. Please stand up. Okay. Thank you.
I have another role in the city that I keep separate from the chamber. I went to one of these meetings that the police department had in a religious institution, and I thought, my God, it's another night I'm out, and it's going to be 2 people there. I was amazed, Chief. There must have been 60 people there from the community, from faith-based organizations, along with 1 or 2 members of the Haverhill Police Department. And that just shows you the interest that people have to be part of the solution and not simply just call with the problem. So I want to commend all of you, all the chiefs, for what they do in the community. Thank you, Chief Pistone. The Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce, as you know, has its headquarters in the city of Lawrence. We've worked with the Lawrence chief for a number of years. I want to say thank you to what has been going on in the city of Lawrence, and that is the continuing decline of public safety matters and concerns, and the continuing rise of property valuations. And obviously, crime was one of the big issues that when I first got there 25 years ago or so, Lawrence was known for all types of wrong things. Today, investment is skyrocketing, and the problem we have is trying to find space for new and expanding businesses. And I want to say thank you to the City of Lawrence Police Department, and especially to the Chief, Roy Vasquez. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mike. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for having me here again. This is my 5th year, finishing up my 5th year as the chief in Lawrence and 30-plus years of law enforcement. And I'd like to echo Chief from Haverhill and others have said about District Attorney John Blodgett. It's probably the last time we'll be in the same sort of public setting together. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say about how much work the District Attorney has done, not only in Lawrence, but the entire Merrimack Valley. And everything from, he talked about insurance fraud, which was a huge issue in the city of Lawrence back in the day. At one point, we had over 2,000 cars stolen in the city of Lawrence, if you can believe that. I think we were known as the insurance fraud capital of the world, which is amazing when you think a small community in the Commonwealth, 6 square miles, but that certainly is a distinction that we had. But his energy and his advocacy for, not only that, but a number of other issues have been a huge factor in reducing crime in the city of Lawrence. And just to take on that task force itself, it was a national model, really, got national attention for the work that it did. Like I said, from going to 2,000 stolen motor vehicles in 1 year to now under 200. And that number, to my amazement, continues to drop when you think about, over 100,000 people in a 6 square mile city and the issues that are in Lawrence. But so I just wanted to publicly, District Attorney, thank you for all of your work and your advocacy on so many issues. When policing was taking a beating or continues to take a beating, the District Attorney was the one that was stepping up and leading the forefront there, to really try to change the rhetoric of policing. So he's been our biggest advocate, and for us, it's going to be a huge loss. And we're hoping that District Attorney Tucker, incoming, will pick up that baton for us and continue doing that. So again, I can't thank you enough for years and years and years of helping us and being there for us. Sheriff Carpenter has been a huge friend to all of us here in the Merrimack Valley. He does amazing work, as he spoke about, advocating for the inmates there and trying to get them rehabilitation. Chief Stone took a little bit of my thunder away in talking about mental health and opioids and trying to get people on the right side of things and rehabilitation. The sheriff has been a leader in that as well, so I'm happy to hear about the STARS program. We're certainly going to take advantage of that, but the sheriff has been there day in and day out for us in terms of everything from resources to housing prisoners over the weekend and things of that nature. So our partnership with him has been tremendous, and that'll be something I talk about in a few minutes, really about what I want to speak about is our continued partnership with each other and how that really has manifested itself into reduction in overall crime in Merrimack Valley. So I was happy to hear, well, before I say that, I would like to also, you pointed out Detective Tom Murphy and his work in the police department. And Tom is still here advocating and working with Northern Essex and their program and policing over there. And if I could get 20 more Tom Murphys today, I would take them in a second. Not just because we're hurting for bodies, but Tom was a quality person, a quality investigator, and it still shows today. So Tom, thank you. for everything. So I was happy to hear healthcare and energy, Joe, was the issue's not crime, so I was just going to get up and leave, but you had to throw the crime in there at the end, but that's fine. I think a big part of what we do here in the Merrimack Valley is our collaboration with each other, and certainly there's strength in numbers. And I can't tell you, not only us, but our men and women collaborating with each other, everything from gangs to opioids to even the mental health issues, collaborating on the homeless. Chief, I almost said Captain McNamara, but Chief McNamara and I have talked about the homeless issue because obviously we share that border and that very serious issue there, and we're trying to address it, but address it together. And I think, as I said earlier, strength in numbers is where we're really making our most momentum here in the Merrimack Valley, especially in the crime category, which is obviously very important to you. Auto theft gangs, things of that nature. We're collaborating and passing on information through the district attorney's office, the sheriff, like all of us. So that's really where we're going to make continue to make our biggest gains. And I know in Lawrence, we're in our 4th or 5th year now of overall crime reduction. The crime is down 60% overall in Lawrence since 2017, and 33% overall crime reduction, violent crime, which speaks to a lot when we're talking about the business community. And I can tell you that we take that very seriously, our business community, because we know that's where our foundation of really stabilizing the community comes from. Back in 2018, when I took over as a chief, one of the first moves I made was to create a business liaison to the community officer, Abel Cano, who's done a great job. That is his job all day, every day, 7 days a week, and I'm sure Joe has collaborated with him dozens and dozens and dozens of times whenever there's an issue come up, and I'm sure some of you in the room have as well. But it was really wanting us to have someone that the business community could call immediately to work on those ongoing issues. We're a busy community, over 70,000 calls a year for service. So when you call into just to the dispatch room, and whether you call once, twice, 4 times, 10 times, you're always going to get a different person generally, and your call may go up or whatever. But I wanted to try to streamline that to make sure that there was a contact person that you could deal with day in and day out, who could develop a program for you to deal with the issues that you're dealing with, whether it's something with DPW related or obviously a crime issue, trespassing, littering, whatever it might be. But we wanted that relationship built so that person knew the business community inside and out, and they could call them directly instead of getting a little frustrated with calling a very busy department and trying to figure out who's going to show up next. That officer would get there and could help you, obviously, but next time you call it somebody different, obviously the way it works. So we wanted to streamline that process, make sure that you had a contact person that you could deal with directly to make sure that we built up that relationship, because again, like I said, the business community is so important to stabilizing the city of Lawrence and obviously these other communities here that are joining us. So that's our commitment to you. We're going to continue to do that. We've spent a great deal of time and energy and money in technology. I think we have probably the most comprehensive camera program this side of Boston, and only Boston, because Boston's obviously a very large area and community. But that really, we've seen a huge benefit in that. Again, it's a force multiplier having cameras. If you can't have another 100 more, if you can't have 100 more police officers, if you can't put a cop on every corner, you can certainly put a camera on every corner. And I can tell you, we may not be able to prevent stuff, although I do think people now, especially the gang type stuff and even the drugs, which is probably unfortunately pushing some of that towards these other communities here to my left. But people are thinking twice about doing something quote unquote stupid in Lawrence. So it's been beneficial in that respect. But really where we're getting our biggest bang for our buck in the cameras is when we go back and investigate stuff. And I would say 95% of the use of the cameras is after the fact. We have seen some live things go on, and obviously we've responded to that, whether it's the schools or we actually had someone try to take a pocketbook from an elderly woman, and we're able to intervene in that, watch that live, and take that person down within 5 minutes. But after the fact, we've been hugely successful in clearing cases. And our clearance rates, everything from serious stuff like homicide all the way down to auto theft and littering, even illegal dumping, things like that, well above the national average, sometimes more than 2 and 3%, 2-3 times, I should say, above the national average. So what does that do? So as an example, we've had an individual in the past commit 30 burglaries where he was pushing in air conditioners one summer, but 3 summers ago. Did 30 of them. So again, being able to catch that person very quickly when he's doing 1 or 2, take him off the street, you're going to prevent 28 others. So twofold, your crime is going to go down. You're not going to get those 28 extra crimes, so your crime is going to continue to drop. But also, that says a lot to the community about they're not going to be victimized. So again, the cameras have been hugely beneficial, and we're going to continue to expand that. Recently, I applied to NERAC, which is a Homeland Security type organization that provides funding for communities. If you put together a process for 3 communities being affected by a program, I was able to get more cameras incorporating North Andover, Methuen, and Andover, and basically expand our camera system to go into those towns and cover those borders, again, carrying over to 495 and 93. So whether someone's exiting or entering those communities, we're going to have some film there about if something goes on, and I think it's been hugely beneficial, and I know it's helped in prosecuting individuals. When someone sees their picture up there, they're more apt to, to take a plea than to try to push something to a trial when the picture is worth 1,000 words. So happy to do that program. That's going to be starting very shortly, and again, just speaks to the collaboration that we have with each other, and I think that's where we're going to see our biggest gain. So that being said, we certainly value our business community. We're going to continue to work hard for you. As Joe said, don't be afraid to reach out to us, and we will certainly do our best to take care of whatever issue continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Let me tell you quickly how important the issue of police protection is to a business community. Years ago, we were dealing with a vacant, underutilized, abandoned mill complex. We had secured the potential of a very high-profile tenant to come into this project. They were very concerned about image. They were very concerned about the issues that would face them in terms of the permitting issues that you all think about, but there were also issues of crime. Would there be someone available to assist if there was a need? We actually met with them the Sunday morning of the Super Bowl. That's how important this business was. It was the leading edge of a major renovation project that we anticipated could happen. One of the elements was the issue of public safety. They were assured by the then chief that if there was an issue, he was personally available, as does all these chiefs today. So the issue of public safety, although it's not there of concern, if it were, they wanted to make sure someone was available. And that's why it's so important to have these kinds of meetings, because of the fact that our chiefs are available to us, our district attorney, our sheriff. So do you want to know the result of that? It's a small project called the Riverwalk, $100+ million, I've lost track. But that's the issues that we face on a day-to-day basis, making sure that there was someone available in the event there was a need. And I want to say thank you to all the chiefs because they've been continually available. Now, I think perhaps the newest chief, the Methuen Police Chief, Scott McNamara.
Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me here today. I want to thank Joe, Michael, the Chamber of Commerce, the Haverhill Country Club, and all of our sponsors for gathering us here together today for this wonderful event. I want to share the sentiment of my predecessors that spoke before me and wish District Attorney Blodgett well in his retirement. Sir, thank you for all your support that you've provided me and for local law enforcement for over the years. You've really been there for us, and it's appreciated. I also want to say thank you to the sheriff. Sheriff, you've been somebody that we can always rely on, and certainly I want to congratulate you, hopefully not prematurely, on your recent win, but I feel confident that we'll get 6 more years and 6 more years of wonderful support. So thank you, sir. I also want to recognize Acting Chief Murphy, who we worked with for many years in Lawrence. Chief Ask, I agree entirely with what you say about Chief Murphy. Murph, I tell you, you're such a dynamic force in law enforcement. I often wonder, what were you like in your 20s? I mean, imagine having a few guys like you in our department. What a difference we could make. But I'll say this. So I've been in office for about a year. In fact, I think next Wednesday will mark 1 year in office. I want to say that I'm really grateful for this wonderful and unique opportunity. I've inherited a wonderful group of men and women at the Methuen Police Department, both sworn and civilian. I have and frankly, I have a wonderful community that really supports law enforcement. They really support their police department. I'd like to talk a little bit about our relationship with the business community, and then perhaps give you a little bit of a window into the Methuen Police Department itself. I believe there's always been a symbiotic relationship between law enforcement and the business community. Obviously, businesses look to relocate or locate in areas where communities can provide good quality public safety. In turn, those businesses pay taxes. Those taxes are used for many reasons, but of course, the hiring of police officers. It's a cycle, but it's a cycle that works more efficiently when we partner and work together, when we all pull in the same direction. And I can say in Methuen, I believe we're doing that. Perhaps it's not something that you generally think of when you talk about economic development and job creation, but in Methuen, under Mayor Perry's leadership, we've established an excellent working relationship with our colleagues in the business community and in City Hall itself. In fact, Mayor Perry hosts what he calls whip-around meetings. Mayor, is that what we call it, whip-around? Every couple of weeks the first time I heard that, I said, what goes on at these whip-around meetings?
Can you say it publicly?
Yeah. Now I can, but I was concerned when I first heard about it. But frankly, we meet with our colleagues, our other department heads, and we talk about the challenges that lie ahead of us. We talk about how we can coordinate better as a city to support businesses and other challenges. Sometimes it's coordinating better, and sometimes it's simply just getting out of the way. But from major projects like our new balance factory that recently joined us and on the west side of our city, to the smaller projects like our new bus shelters that we plan on putting up and down Broadway, our department now works proactively with planning and inspectional services. We touch on traffic management issues and public safety issues prior to implementation. We meet regularly with economic development, our director, our code of inspectors, and we have a team in the Methuen Police Department. They're dedicated to traffic management and public safety, but they meet regularly with planning to discuss our new commercial and industrial projects. The recent rollout of our new online permitting system has also greatly enhanced the department's ability to promote economic development, and it streamlined our approval system for sign-offs for new business applicants. The city of Methuen is truly open for business. Now I'd like to touch on some of the issues within the Methuen Police Department itself. As I said, I started about a year ago, and we had a lot of challenges that lied ahead of us. The mayor and I have kind of attacked it from 3 different areas. We looked to rebuild the department in 3 areas. The first was improving morale. Most of you know that there was a rather scathing audit of the department that was conducted about 2 years ago. There was a blueprint for success within that audit. But one of the things that touched on, there were essentially 23 deficiencies, major deficiencies that were noted. But each one of those spoke to an overarching theme. That overarching theme was a lack of fundamental fairness in areas such as initial hiring, for example. Who would be chosen for specialist positions? Who would be promoted? And who would be disciplined and who wouldn't? I looked at that as low-hanging fruit, something that could easily be changed simply by doing what's right. I think everybody in this room, that's the default position. You're fundamentally fair. That was easy to fix. A little bit more difficult was establishing trust. That was going to take a little bit of time. I believe we're on our way there, but I think we've given police officers the autonomy to make good faith decisions on their own in the best interests of our community. They understand now that if they trip up and falter, as long as their default position is good faith, they're going to be supported. They're not necessarily going to be disciplined. They're going to be coached up to do it better. The other area that we needed to improve on was the infrastructure that supports police officers. I saw a lot of things in my career in Lawrence, and Chief Ask, you have one of the best fleets in the Commonwealth now, and it's wonderful. But you and I lived through some bad times, right? Some times where the fleet was in a deplorable condition. I thought I'd seen the worst until I arrived in Methuen. Unfortunately, police vehicles had not been purchased, or frankly, maybe they had been purchased, but they hadn't been given to line officers in about 4 or 5 years. For those of you who don't know, police officers put upwards of 50,000 miles a year on cars. So most of our patrol fleet was over 200,000 miles. These cruisers are breaking down on the way to emergency calls. Last year, we were fortunate to purchase 8 new police cruisers. Those cruisers went right to police officers in the field, right to line officers. None of them went to supervisors. One of the things we did is the officers and the Patrol Officers Union, they wanted to have a hand in the design of the cruisers. We let them put together a committee. They put forth a proposal. We fully adopted the proposal because it made a lot of sense. I think the cruisers are beautiful and they love them. This year we're going to buy either 8 or 9 new cruisers. When I say 8 or 9, the mayor doesn't know it, but I'm going to lean on him to use an extra $50,000 in our insurance reimbursement trust fund to see if we can get that 9th cruiser. So I'm hoping the answer will be yes, Mayor, but we'll get at least 8. Also, we're moving to make some improvements in the building itself, infrastructure improvements. We have a facility that supports police officers, but things like, for example, the bathroom facilities, there's no working showers. That's obviously something that we want to provide for our officers so that perhaps they can work out in the morning, take a shower, and start their shift. The mayor and the council and the taxpayers were kind enough to provide the funds for that and a number of other improvements. We're going to rebuild our evidence procedures, our evidence processing rooms and holding rooms from the ground up. We're going to do that better. And we're going to make a host of improvements related to our efforts to achieve accreditation, and I'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. But one of the most significant things we did is we rebuilt our patrol force, our police force in general. When I arrived, we had just 80 police officers. We were budgeted for 90, but we had just 80 police officers in the building. We looked at Department of Justice standards that are produced annually, and we made the case that for a city along the size of Methuen with 53,000 residents, we should have closer to 106 sworn members rather than the 90 that we're budgeted for. I had promised and hopefully delivered on that promise by way of introducing a reorganization plan within my first 90 days. That reorganization plan called for some streamlining at the top of the organization, cutting for captains' positions, for example, but we added significantly to the line officers. So the mayor and the council and the taxpayers adopted a plan that will bring us from 90 police officers to 106 over the period of 2 years. And I'm proud to report at the end of this calendar year, we should have 98 police officers in our building. And having those 98 and eventually that 106 is going to allow us to move from what I view as where we were. We were essentially a reactive police department. We had just enough police officers to answer the 9/11 calls, to kind of pick up the pieces after the event happened. Now that we have these extra police officers, the police officers we require, we're now able to attack these issues on a more proactive perspective. Recently, in the last several months, we added our first 2 police officers that focus strictly on narcotics. They attack the narcotics trade and the opioid epidemic. We're going to add another just next week. Next week, we're going to introduce our first 2 community policing officers, 2 officers that based on our data and analytics that we scrutinize each month, we've identified areas of the greatest need within our city where crime and disorder is more prevalent. We're going to untether these police officers. We're going to have them focus specifically in those neighborhoods and try to prevent crime before it happens. We've also added to our school resource officers. When I arrived, we had 3 SROs in our 5 schools. We now have a police officer in each of our 5 schools, consistent with best practices. And finally, we've added officers that focus specifically on traffic issues. I think that was one of the things that took me by surprise when I arrived in Methuen, how pervasive the concerns were with speeding and traffic issues. So we're going to have officers that we carve out to focus specifically on that. Some of the other things that we kind of picked up from the audit was a need to increase our supervision in the field with patrol supervisors, sergeants. We've added a number of sergeants to our force, and I'm happy to report that we promoted our first female patrol officer to the rank of sergeant in 22 years. Prior to my arrival, there'd Often, the department would run without a patrol supervisor on the road. They'd have a supervisor inside, but not on the outside where they're really needed. We've changed that practice. Now we have a patrol supervisor on the street 24 hours a day. Prior to my arrival, we often had one dispatcher answering all those calls coming in from businesses, 9/11 calls coming in. I looked at it as an officer safety issue that needed to be fixed. The mayor and the council supported that. We hired dispatchers, and the dispatchers we hired all spoke 2 languages. They all speak Spanish. Prior to that, we had our whole dispatch force, all that we hired, none of them spoke Spanish, despite the fact that 40% of our population does. All of our new dispatchers speak 2 languages. We've introduced a new records management system to the department that's going to go live very soon. I believe it's going to be a wonderful system, a flagship RMS system perhaps for the state eventually. It's going to help us analyze data and analytics. It's going to inform our deployment decisions, automize some of what we do and reduce redundancy, get police officers back out into the field where we need them most. We hired a director of crime analysis, somebody who I believe is a leader in her field. She's pointing us in the right direction and making sure that we're expending our limited resources where they're needed most. They often say the NFL is a copycat league. Have you ever heard that when they rolled out some of those crazy things like the Wildcat offense? And then you realize the next month or so, all the NFL coaches are rolling out Wildcat offenses because it works. Well, law enforcement is a copycat league. Both the Haverhill chief and the Lawrence chief have used these public camera systems, and they've had wild success with them. I was fortunate that Mayor Perry was already on the forefront of this technology, and he was already moving to adopt this prior to my arrival. I'm proud to report that our first 50 are going up now as we speak, and another 50 or so will go up early next year because they've been funded as part of a capital improvement plan. And I want to say that I believe that the public camera programs are wildly effective. I've seen the success that Lawrence and Haverhill have had, and truly they are solving crimes that way beyond national levels in terms of national clearance rates. We're going to bring that to Methuen, and I believe we're going to have great success with it. And I've seen it have great success. I've seen public cameras simply be the only lead that was used to solve crimes ranging from hit and run to homicide. They're just a wonderful tool, yet another tool in our arsenal to combat the issues that we deal with every day. We've introduced CompStat to the department, monthly meetings where the mayor and I question our supervisors. We hold supervisors accountable for their performance. We analyze where we were this month in comparison to where we were last month, or where we were this month and compared to where we were a year ago. We look at, of course, our Part 1 crimes: murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, commercial burglary, residential burglary, larceny plus 1250, and we substitute auto theft for arson. We look at all those things and we make those comparisons. We do a deeper dive as well. We look at literally every single report, and we ask our supervisors, hey, have you exhausted every reasonable lead to get to a conclusion on this case, to solve this case, and like Chief Ash said, not only solve this case, but perhaps prevent the next 30. We do that every month now, and I think we're having success with that. One of the other things we track that I think is kind of unique is not just, I think everybody more or less tracks things like, for example, motor vehicle thefts, arrests, citations, that sort of thing. It's important. We need to track those things for obvious reasons. But one of the things we're tracking now in Methuen is what I call officer-initiated community engagement efforts. We encourage our officers every day to get out of the car for at least 20 or 30 minutes and find something that they enjoy doing that's useful and beneficial to them and useful and beneficial to our community. It could be something as simple as a park and walk, for example, perhaps a business check-in, getting out of the car, walking in, talking to a manager, a clerk, or a patron of the business, and getting to know the people that live and work in your community. It could be something along the lines of getting out of your car and taking making a brief visit to the seniors at our senior center and things along those lines. We even have some of our officers now are making a point to stop at the bus stops in the morning and just talk to children while they wait for the bus to pick them up. we track that because it's important. It's important to me, and I believe it's been important to them, and I think that they've had a lot of success with it. We're attacking our diversity issues. One of the things we're bringing to the department now is a cadet program. We're going to hire 2 young people, hopefully a male and a female in the age ranges of 19 to 23. They're going to serve the department in a non-sworn capacity. We're going to hire these young people. We're going to target areas of diversity within our city to make these hires. They're going to work for us for 2 years. If they work for us for 2 years and they leave us in good standing, all they need to do is take the civil service exam and pass it. If they take the civil service exam and pass it, we're allowed to pluck 1 of every 3 hires from our cadet list. And we're going to coach these young people up while they're with us. We're going to expose them to law enforcement. We're going to train them, and they're going to help us out as well. But these are paid positions. They're going to get paid to do things like monitor our front window, service our citizens, light filing, answering our phones, talking to business owners, that sort of thing. But hopefully we're going to provide a hand up to these young people and give them a career that perhaps they wouldn't otherwise have had. Stealing yet another idea from Chief Pistone in Haverhill. Just recently we've introduced 2 police officers that are going to serve as liaisons to our Latino community, people that can better help connect me to an underserved population within our city. We've also introduced 2 police officers that are going to serve in the role of veterans liaison, help us connect both inside and outside the department. And finally, I'm getting ready to close. I know I'm kind of long-winded. I'm happy to report that we've recently been notified that we've achieved the first 159 standards that are necessary to achieve certification. The mayor and I will be pleased to receive that award later this year in October, just about a month away. We'll get that award. We'll become a certified agency. But even more importantly, we've been selected as an agency that's appropriate for to be reviewed for accelerated accreditation. So Mayor will have our review, as you know, in early December, and my fingers are crossed. I'm hopeful, and I believe that we're going to get there. We'll get to that gold standard of accreditation and get to that point. Finally, I'll leave you with this. Tomorrow is Methuen Day. It's a wonderful community event. I hope you'll join us. It's from 10 to 3 in the afternoon. During that period, from 10 to 2, we'll have an open house at the Methuen Police Department. Come by, say hello, see some of our resources, see our building, see our new police cruisers. If you'd like to take a tour, you're welcome. Just don't expect to take a shower while you're there, okay? Thank you.
I thought you were going to say you could take a cruiser. Let me say thank you. Let me welcome the City of Lawrence Mayor Brian DePena, a strong law enforcement individual. Andover Chief Keefe was planning on attending. He got called out at the last moment, could not be here, but wanted to send his best regards to all of you. Please welcome, certainly not, it's our last speaker for tonight before we ask for questions, but certainly not least, our friend from North Andover Police Chief, Charles Gray. Welcome, Chief. And then we'll do some questions afterwards.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mike. Thank you to the Chamber again for having us. This is my 6th year doing the breakfast here, and to echo the sentiments of my other fellow chiefs here, in 2016 when I took the office of chief, the first thing I did was set up a meeting with John Blodgett. If you don't know, we basically take our marching orders from him. He tells us how he wants to do things, and we make it happen, and how his policies are handling certain crimes and whatnot. So when I had to go sit there and meet with him, he was unbelievably helpful. He was a friend, and as we've dealt with problems over the last 6 years, it's not a day goes by that I don't either reach out to him or I talk about how great it is to work for him. So again, we are going to miss you, and thank you for everything you've done for us in North Andover. That being said, in 2016, I also started attending the Chiefs meetings that we have to go to, and then Chief Coppinger was getting ready to walk out after a successful run for sheriff, and I saw the amount of respect that he got from the group and how people talked to him, looked up to him as a senior chief in the room, and I can see that that's carried on as a sheriff, and he still goes to the meetings. He still has the same reputation as a strong chief who did a great job, and now he's doing that as a sheriff. So again, Sheriff, thank you very much for all the help you've given us in North Andover. And in talking about these meetings, the four of us just came from the Mass Chiefs meeting down in Norwood. We have to go every year for our in-service training, additional training that we have to attend above and beyond what the officers get because of what we do. And 350 chiefs go down there, and we all get in a room, and we get the same standardized training. But one thing is we noticed is when the other chiefs saw us, they came out, and the five of us, even the deputy was with us, they're always saying, you guys are always together. And we said, yeah, we are, because that's how we do things in the Merrimack Valley. I think Chief Vass told them it's a Merrimack Valley thing. But it's the best practices that we do as a group that work. And just like Chief McNamara said, copycat offense and stuff, right? They mentioned what they're doing as far as community policing and stuff. Guess what we're doing in North Andover now? Omaha, right? we're doing a community police officer program too, okay? And it's two officers that have been selected. They go out and they deal with the business community. They deal with problems, and it essentially takes the onus off the line officer who changes 3 times a day and gives them one person, one face, 2 faces to deal with, so they can address the problems on an ongoing basis. So again, it's the collaboration we have with the Merrimack Valley Chiefs is phenomenal. It's breakfast like this that we get to sit down and talk more. Chief Keefe is one of us that, we're always together, we're always doing things, and we're always thinking about how to make things better. And that's one thing we can look forward to each year, that we come up here and we don't say the same thing over and over again. We're always changing, always making things happen. So thank you again for having me. Appreciate it.
I really want to reiterate this regional representation, regional teamwork, because I think it truly makes a difference. As I mentioned, energy and healthcare were the 2 major issues we heard continually over the years. And Mike, as I mentioned, Michael and I visit a company, at least one company every day. But what's starting to be heard is not a concern yet here, but what's starting to be heard is what people are seeing across the nation with the, and I'll use the term lawlessness. They see pictures of TV of people breaking into retail stores. They hear about people being able to break into your home and stay there for a couple of days and you can't do anything about it. They see crime against police around the country. And they're asking, and they're concerned, is it coming this way? And we're just starting to hear that. And again, I want to say thank you to the police chiefs and to the district attorney and the sheriff, because when we have called in the past about issues, they've been there directly. And I can tell you that we, with the mayor, did a groundbreaking a couple weeks ago with a major new high-tech, one of the highest tech companies in the world, I think, coming to Methuen. Crime was never an issue at the time, never discussed. We're working with Mayor DePino on his new economic development strategy. Crime was not an issue. We've worked with the city of Haverhill on a major new company coming in here. Crime has not been an issue. And the same is true, we met with the North Andover planning director a couple of weeks ago with a major development project that we're trying to find a site for. Crime has not been an issue. But for the companies that are here right now, they're starting to ask the question, is it coming this way, and what do we do? How do we prepare ourselves, or what is being done? So I'd like to ask that question of whoever may want to address it. Is it obviously something that we have to be concerned about in terms of what we see happening around the country? And if so, what's being done, or how are you preparing to ensure that it doesn't get to that point? No bail laws and all that type of thing. Anyone want to talk about that at all, or Mr. District Attorney?
Take a whack at it.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think people should be concerned, and it's something that it's going to take a voice, collective voice, and individual voices to address. You've all heard the term a progressive prosecutor. That has so many connotations to what it means. I will tell you that if you pay attention, there are some people who are elected, as I have been, to this job who see things a lot differently than I do. Every chief here, every chief I deal with, the sheriff, we're all progressive. And by that I mean, we look at things individually and try to address and find solutions to address that. I have I have a very robust juvenile diversion program. I created youthful diversion, and I created drug diversion in 2007. Over 1,500 people have availed themselves of drug diversion. It's evolving all the time, but they've had help at no cost to them for a minimum of 6 months. And if they successfully complete it, based on what the clinicians say, there's no prosecution. 20,000 people in my 20 years, 20,000 people have gone through youthful and juvenile diversion. But here's the distinction, and it's a distinction worth noting. When you get elected as district attorney, you raise your right hand, take an oath. I did it 5 times. I took an oath of office, and the oath was that I would uphold the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and defend the Constitution. I didn't take an oath of office that said I'll uphold the laws that I like and defend the Constitution. The role of the legislature is being usurped by some people who call themselves progressive prosecutors. The legislature creates laws and the penalties for breaking those laws. It's not up for a district attorney or any other elected official to decide they're not going to do that. And I've always been a strong, vocal opponent that when somebody says here's 15, 16, 20 sets of crimes that I'm not going to prosecute, that's a dereliction of duty. And when you have prosecutors who are making politics and media pressure their guiding light as opposed to the law and the facts, that's a dereliction of your oath of office. So we haven't seen it to some extent. We have seen it, but not to some extent, but it's coming this way. You look at the cities in the United States that have had so-called progressive prosecutors, and they're on fire. You can't deny that. Los Angeles, look what happened in San Francisco. Companies, Walmart, Target, CVS, leaving because they're telling their employees, don't stop people who are shoplifting. They're leaving those cities. Chicago, Philadelphia, New York City. They're all on fire because people aren't doing their jobs. And businesses, but more importantly, just as importantly, citizens who live in those cities and towns have a right. They have a right to live in fear, without fear, and knowing that public safety officers will protect them. And the unsuspecting public shouldn't be at risk because somebody's not doing their job. So I think you can tell I feel passionately about it. But it's going to be up to everybody who has businesses, who owns homes, who have children, to speak up when they see that creeping this way. That's the only way it's going to stop.
As I spoke earlier, obviously the business end of it for us in Lawrence and obviously these communities is a number 1 priority. I know with the new administration, Mayor DePena coming into office, one of his marching orders was economic development. And that is a focal point. So we have to do everything in our power to make sure that you all feel safe about coming to the city of Lawrence and these other communities because that's what makes our communities strong. So we are certainly focused on the national scene, crime-wise, and the trends that are going on there. Is it coming here? Potentially, as a DA say, hopefully not to that extent, but we're not going to put up with it. Just so you're aware, I think the DA spoke passionately about that. So for us, it's a priority. All the chiefs have said, we're on top of things and we're seeing the national trends and we're trying to get ahead of the curve before they come here. That's why we talk about cameras and license plate readers and business liaisons and things like that, because the business community is our number 1 priority. So, thank you.
Yes, we have a question. Just anyone or directed to anyone?
This is to the group. My name is Bill Kelly. I'm with the Veterans Northeast Outreach Center in Haverhill. And I just wanted to commend you collectively. We have staff members that work with the veteran court system and the diversion programs. And, that is such a useful tool and a very common sense approach to, a problem that might not be criminal, or maybe it's a substance abuse, maybe it's a mental health issue. I just love the fact that there's enlightened discretion being used, and I commend you for that. And I heard a couple of people talk about veteran liaison officers. I'm going to be reaching out to all of you to find out more about those programs. So thank you very much for that.
Anyone want to comment on that? Or? Again, I want to remind you all of our Veterans Program on November 4th. You're all welcome to attend, and it's very, very important. As you can see, Veterans Assistance is one of the major programs of the Merrimack Valley Chamber because we want to say thank you to the men and women who serve, provide the assistance they need, and we work closely with VNOC. So thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, yes, Superintendent of Whittier Road Tech.
Yes. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Maureen Lynch. I'm the superintendent at Whittier Tech. And obviously, school safety is paramount in our mind as far as running a school district. I really want to thank District Attorney Blodgett. You've been amazing. Your team's been amazing. There's been such a collaborative effort at Whittier Tech, and also with Chief Pistone. I know I can count on people to make sure that they're a phone call away, that there's an issue going on here at our school. And I really appreciate the collaborative work effort, so thank you.
Thank you. I don't think we do this enough. We don't say thank you enough to these men and women. Give them a round of applause. Let them know that we appreciate what they do, because this is something that I've learned over the years. Yes, I'm going to call you in a second, but one thing I've learned over the years is that when we call 911, we expect someone to come, and they have no idea what they're going to expect. So you want to say thank you and let them know we appreciate it. Yes, you have a question.
I'm Chris McGannis, the principal of Whittier Tech, and thank you, Maureen, for speaking up. And Chief Pistone, we want to thank you. Amazing over all the years at Whittier Tech that I've been there. You guys are there in a second when we ask you. So that being said, just while we captivate all the chiefs here, is there anything we can do more to protect our kids? We go in every day, and that's our objective, is social, emotionally, physically, whatever it may be, is to protect our children and our staff. And Chief Pistone, we do pretty well at Whittier Tech. Anything from the other chiefs, or whatever it may be that we can do aside from locking doors, ALICE trainings, connections to the police department, having a resource officer, because we'll do it, anything. Superintendent Lynch to take care of our kids.
Anyone like to comment on that? Jump in.
Thank you, Principal McGannis and Superintendent for your kind words. So I must say, Whittier Tech, exemplary school district in terms of school safety. We meet often. We recently met about your plans for possibly a new building or an addition. And one of the things we remarked is, even though you have what's considered now an old plant, physical plant, again, your practices are some of the best practices in terms of upgrading your cameras and one of the things we talked about, which is a problem at a lot of schools, is one of the biggest things we see is the door security. We see a lot of kids will let other kids in the door. We had a call last year for possibly a student or I should say an intruder in the school with a gun at one of the Haverhill Public Schools, and that was a result of another student letting that student in. Ended up, he didn't have a firearm on him, but caused quite a bit of chaos. But again, the biggest thing is communication and the frequent meetings that we have. Again, the biggest thing is having the partnership with you, and that you take it serious. But again, every year, as you know, we go over your school safety plan. We take a look at your physical plant. We go over the plan that you have. You have an in-house school resource officer, and that all goes a long way. Your school resource officer, he has his cruiser parked right out front. You have a guard shack. So as soon as somebody comes into your driveway, they're immediately met by somebody. Which is, if you notice, a lot of good banks will have a greeter, especially when we have like a lot of bank robberies. They'll introduce a greeter at the door, and that goes a long way. And it's the same thing with, as soon as somebody comes in, they encounter somebody. So, but again, it's education, like anything, educating the kids to not let outsiders in. You have a great security force, so that's what I would say. Any other questions about that?
No, that's great. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. And Joe, I'd like to recognize. We have, I don't know if people are aware, we have a police academy in Haverhill on the grounds of Northern Essex Community College, and Director Josh Stokel is here if you want to stand up for me. So very, very fortunate that we have all the chiefs here. We all send our recruits to the local academy, which is fantastic. They do a great job preparing our officers. So.
Chief, do you want to comment as well?
just to add to Chief Pistone's comments, I'll say that, we've experienced a couple of high-profile incidents in Methuen during my brief tenure. And, one of the things I recognize in myself, and I think that's true of all of us, is that we're not experts in every aspect of policing. So one of the things we did in Methuen is we commissioned a comprehensive school safety assessment. And that assessment provided us with, again, a blueprint for improvement. For example, there'd been a considerable dedication of resources in the past several years implementing a surveillance video system in our high school, but it wasn't being utilized to its fullest potential. For example, this video system, it was a wonderful tool in terms of finding out who was responsible for committing a violent act, for example. It was kind of like an after-the-fact forensic tool that we'd be able to look and find out what happened. But ideally, you'd be using that resource, for example, to alert you to the presence of an intruder. A video system, along with an alert system that if in fact the door was propped open that shouldn't be propped open, if an entry was made. I mean, nowadays we want to have single point entry wherever possible in our schools. People should only be coming and going essentially through one door. And if there's any variation in that, it ought to be at prescribed times with at least two school staff members with radios and an ability to communicate. But in the event that there is an entry somewhere else in the building, you need to know about it in real time. And the technology is there now. It's not all that costly nowadays. You want to be alerted to it in real time so that you can take affirmative measures to intervene before the violence starts. So that's one of the big changes that we're making in Methuen, but there's a host of others, and some of them that weren't immediately apparent to me that only became apparent to me after having this assessment. So that's one of the things you may want to consider.
Thank you. Time for one more question. The chief will be here as well as the DA and the sheriff. Any other comments? Sal, do you have a question you wanted to mention?
No, I know that Sal DeFranco, owner of Battlegrounds Coffee Company, and Republican nominee for state senate in the district as well. But we're having coffee with a cop next week at Battlegrounds Coffee Company. Everybody's welcome to come. You get to meet local officers, talk about what's going on in the city, voice your concerns, and ask any questions you want. Very similar to what's going on here. It's a fantastic opportunity, and it's something we've done for, 6 years now since we've been open, and with tremendous success. So hopefully all of you can make it.
Thank you. Last question, anyone?
Joe, excuse me, one more comment. So it goes on the heels of talking about school safety, but this applies to everybody here. A lot of problem in the schools where there'd be an intruder and say teacher or whatnot was held hostage. They couldn't communicate what was going on. I don't know why the state hasn't done a better job of advertising this, but everybody should know. You can now text 911. You don't have to call, okay? You don't have to put the phone up. You can text 911, and most communities, I think all now, have that ability that it will recognize your coordinates, and so our dispatch center will get notification, and they will reply. Okay, they'll send you a text back, asking you questions. So text 911. You don't have to call 911, and that will go right to the dispatch.
And that's true in any city?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's good information.
Thank you to, first of all, thank you to the mayors for being such strong public safety supporters. We appreciate that because obviously the business community is very, very concerned about that. And again, one thing we want to mention about the business community is that, in fact, when the businessmen and women, before they get to their place of business and when they go home, they're family members. And so they're concerned about their wives and their husbands and kids and so on. So we want to say thank you to the mayors for their strong support. We also want to say thank you to the chiefs, because you are the first point of contact with your men and women, and we want to say thank you. We want you to know that we appreciate what you do. And obviously to the district attorney and to the sheriff, the team that we have here working together, we want to say thank you to you. Jonathan, you're always welcome. Mr. Sheriff, I think you'll be back, and so we look forward to having you again next year. But say thank you once again to our men and women. Thank you to our sponsors, All Pro Electric, National Grid, and Norwood Insurance. We want to say thank you. They help make our programs possible. I want to remember once again two or three programs: our annual dinner with the governor coming up on October. Also the Veterans Assistance Program on November 4th. The Women in Business Networking Program for October 3rd is sold out, but there's a host of other activities you'll see online Thank you all. And again, if you're interested in women in business, young people in business, veterans, business in general, call the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce. Have a great day, everyone, and thank you all.